My wife's credit card charges during her work trip made me suspicious. What I found when I flew to Chicago ended our marriage. I, 32M, have been married to my wife, 30F, for 5 years now. We've always had what I thought was a solid relationship, good communication, shared interests, and mutual respect. She works in marketing for a tech firm while I'm in construction management. Our careers have different demands, but we've always made it work. Last month, my wife told me she had to attend a week-long conference in Chicago. This wasn't unusual. She travels for work a few times a year. What was unusual was how excited she seemed about this particular trip. She mentioned several workshops she was looking forward to and networking events that could help with her upcoming promotion. The first 2 days of her trip, we video called each night. She showed me her hotel room, talked about the day's events, and complained about the mediocre conference food. Everything seemed normal, except for one thing. Her social media posts didn't quite match what she was telling me. She posted a photo of herself at what she called the conference dinner on her Instagram story. But something caught my eye in the background. It looked like a fancy restaurant, not a hotel conference room. When I asked about it, she quickly said it was an off-site event for select attendees. The next day, she posted a picture of the Chicago skyline from what appeared to be a rooftop bar. When we talked that night, she mentioned spending the evening in workshops until 9 p.m. I casually asked if she went out after, and she said no, that she was too tired and just ordered room service. I'm not typically suspicious by nature, but these inconsistencies started to nag at me. I checked her location on our shared phone app, and it showed her at the conference hotel. Still, something felt off. Then I saw another post, a group photo at what looked like a nightclub. She had tagged it as Team Building Night, but I didn't recognize anyone in the photo as her co-workers. When I asked who the people were, she said they were from other branches of her company. On day 3 of her trip, she stopped calling me at night, claiming exhaustion and late events. She only sent brief texts saying goodnight. By this point, my stomach was in knots. I decided to do something I never thought I would. I checked our shared credit card statement online. There were charges from restaurants and bars that seemed excessive for a work conference where meals were supposed to be provided. There was also a charge from a high-end clothing store. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about our 5 years together, wondering if I had missed signs before. I considered calling her boss under some pretense to verify the conference, but that felt like crossing a line I wasn't ready to cross. The next morning, I made an impulsive decision. I called in sick to work, packed an overnight bag, and booked a flight to Chicago. I told myself I was being paranoid and that there must be a reasonable explanation. Best case scenario, I'd surprise my wife and we'd have an unexpected night together in Chicago. The flight was only 2 hours, but it felt like an eternity. I kept checking my phone, hoping she would post something that would ease my suspicions. Instead, she posted a selfie with the caption, "Another day of learning and growing. #professional development, #conference. I landed in Chicago around 3 p.m. and took a taxi directly to her hotel. My heart was pounding as I approached the front desk. I asked for my wife's room, planning to surprise her when she returned from her conference sessions. The clerk checked the system and frowned. "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have anyone registered under that name." My blood ran cold. "Could you check again?" "She's been staying here since Monday. She's here for the marketing conference." The clerk looked sympathetic. "Sir, we don't have any marketing conferences happening this week. We have a dental association meeting and a small tech symposium." I thanked him and walked to the hotel bar in a daze. I ordered a drink and pulled out my phone. I opened our location sharing app again, and it still showed her at this hotel. That's when it hit me. She must have left her work phone at the hotel, the one that had the location services activated. With shaking hands, I texted her, "How's the conference going today?" She replied quickly, "So busy. Back-to-back panels until dinner. Miss you." I stared at my phone, my vision blurring with tears. I didn't know what to do next. Part of me wanted to confront her, to search every inch of Chicago until I found her. Another part wanted to fly home and pretend this never happened until I could think clearly. After finishing my drink, I decided to go with my gut. I opened Instagram and checked the location tags on her recent posts. The rooftop bar photo was tagged at a place called Skyview Lounge. It was only about a mile from the hotel. I walked there, rehearsing what I would say if I found her. The lounge wasn't open yet. It didn't open until 5 p.m., but I decided to wait. I sat in a coffee shop across the street, watching the entrance. At 5:30, my patience was rewarded. My wife walked into the lounge, but she wasn't alone. She was with a man I'd never seen before. They walked close together, his hand occasionally touching the small of her back. They looked comfortable together, like they'd done this many times before. I felt sick. I wanted to run across the street and confront them, but I couldn't move. I watched as they disappeared into the building. I sat there for another hour, trying to decide what to do. Eventually, I went back to the hotel bar, ordered another drink, and called my best friend. He advised me to get evidence before confronting her and to try to stay calm. Around 8 p.m., I went back to the Skyview Lounge. I took a deep breath and went inside. The place was crowded, but I spotted them almost immediately. They were at a corner table, leaning in close to each other, talking and laughing. He reached out and touched her cheek in a way that was unmistakably intimate. I walked straight to their table. My wife saw me first. The color drained from her face, and her eyes widened in shock. "Surprise," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I thought I'd join you at your conference." The man looked confused. "What conference?" My wife stammered. "I can explain. This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" "Because it looks like you're having dinner with another man while you're supposed to be at a conference that doesn't exist." She stood up. "Please, let's talk somewhere private." We went to the rooftop area, which was less crowded. She confessed that she had been seeing this man for 2 months. He was a client from her company who lived in Chicago. They had connected during her last business trip and had been talking ever since. "I never meant for this to happen," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I was going to end it after this trip. I've been feeling so guilty. Guilty enough to lie to my face every day? To fabricate an entire conference? I know it's unforgivable. I just got caught up in the excitement of it all. My life with you is so predictable, so routine. That stung more than the cheating, somehow. So I'm boring? That's your excuse." She tried to touch my arm, but I pulled away. "No, that's not what I meant. You're wonderful. I don't know. I got lost." I laughed bitterly. "Well, I found you." I walked away, ignoring her calls behind me. I checked into a different hotel for the night, unable to face flying home immediately. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, replaying our 5 years together and wondering what signs I had missed. The next morning, she called repeatedly. I finally answered on the 5th call. "I'm flying home today," I told her. "I expect you to stay elsewhere when you return. We can discuss logistics next week." "Please," she begged. "Can we talk about this? I made a terrible mistake, but our marriage is worth fighting for." "You weren't fighting for our marriage when you were planning this trip or when you were with him last night. You were fighting for yourself." I hung up and checked out of the hotel. On the flight home, I thought about forgiveness and whether our marriage could survive this. I honestly didn't know. When I got home, I packed a small bag of her essentials and left it with her sister. I changed the locks, not to be vindictive, but because I needed space to think. She came back 2 days later, a day earlier than her conference was supposed to end. She called from outside, asking to come in and talk. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop instead. She cried and apologized profusely. She swore it was over with the other man and that she wanted to work on our marriage. She volunteered to quit her job, to go to counseling, to do whatever it took. I listened silently, feeling oddly detached. When she finished, I told her I needed time to think, that I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. It's been 2 weeks now. She's staying with her sister while I decide what to do. Some days I think about the good years we had and wonder if we could rebuild. Other days, I remember the look on her face in that bar, not regretful, but annoyed at being caught, and I think it's over. My friends are divided. Some say to leave, that once trust is broken, it's impossible to fix. Others say marriages can survive affairs if both people are committed to healing. I don't know what I'll decide, but I do know that my impulsive trip to Chicago showed me a truth I needed to see, no matter how painful. Sometimes, the stories we tell ourselves about our relationships are just that, stories. The reality is something else entirely. Update. Thank you all for the supportive comments and advice. I've decided to try counseling, both individual and couples, before making any final decisions. I need to understand why this happened, and if there's anything worth salvaging. Whatever happens, I know I'll be okay eventually. Sometimes the hardest surprises lead to the most necessary growth.